Okay, B'Sha'ah Tova. So now we're starting Pasuk He in Perek He. So we know the background. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is trying to awake Shlomo HaMelech, the Neshama, the Nefesh, Knesset Israel, and now we're going to your, going back to your famous, to your statement, Stanley. Why he didn't do tshuva? What's going on here? So now we're going to see the teshuvah. The pasuk says like this: Kamti ani liftoach ledodi. I stood up and to open the door for my beloved. Veyadai, and my hands, not fumor, were dripping the mir. Ve'etzbe'otai, and my fingers, moreover, are filled and flowing with the mir. Al kapot amarul, on the holder of the doorknob. Sorry. So the Gaon Mivilna breaks down this pasuk into three. He says the following. He says Shlomo HaMelech is addressing the hand, Yadai la tefumor, and then he addresses the fingers, Ve'etzbe'otai moreover, and he addresses the doorknob, the kapot, the kaf, kapot amanrul, which is the palm of the lock, right? The doorknob is called the palm of the lock. Why? Because when you open the door, your palm basically takes the doorknob and turns it. And the Gaon says the following. He says, Kamtiani liftoach ledodi. It means I stood up on my own. Ani, right? I found the inner strength. I found in me the courage to stand up and do teshuvah. Ve'adai hayu mevosamim, and my hands were filled with what? With the smell of the mir, right? With this beautiful essence. And it was so filled with it that it's as if it was dripping from my hands. And it even touched and made the doorknob also smell the smell of the mir. He says, the hand is referring to the actions Shlomo HaMelech did, Am Yisrael did, to do teshuvah. He says, the yad is the essential part of the hand, right? It's the hand as a whole. And then you have the etzbaot, the fingers, which is the end of the hands. He says it's the extension of the hand. And the kaf the kaf, the palm, is called the protection of the hand. So you have the hand that's basically moving and grasping and taking and doing things. You have the fingers that are the extension of what you're looking to accomplish with your hand. And the protection of the hand, the strength of the hand is the kaf, is the palm. The Gaon refers this to the Bet HaMikdash, the binyan of the Bet HaMikdash, but essentially showing that in order for the teshuvah to be made, it requires proactivity actions, and that's what Knesset Israel decided to do. It decided to do a teshuvah that is not based on ideology and philosophy and just goodwill, but on actions from the hands, but also with a focus on the extension of the action, the influence of the actions. So it's an awareness on the outcome of each action, and protected by the kaf, protected by the palm, which is protected from any outside influence on the action. Here, the Gaon says this is the basic teshuvah. Is based on three things: on proactivity, on awareness of the outcome of your actions, and on protecting your actions from being distorted, influenced. Yes? From the outside world.
Can you repeat the last one, the protection, please?
The protection from the outside influence on your actions, right? You don't want to be distracted. You don't want to be influenced by the outside world. So all this together is the definition of kamtiani liftoach ledodi. It's a layer, right? Obviously, we will see that it's not enough. It's not enough for Klal Yisrael. It's not enough for Shlomo HaMelech to rekindle and rebuild the relationship that was there prior the sleeping period, right? Prior to the disconnect. But apparently, it's the first layer of Teshuvah. The Malbim addresses this pasuk with as main focus the mir. And the Malbim repeats it many times, that there's a difference between the levona and the mir. The levona is made from vegetation, from flowers, roots, where the mir is, he says, is a smell that comes from the blood of animals in India. That's his definition of mor. So he says, when we talk about the mor ulvona, we talk about the smell that comes from the animal base and from the levona, which is the vegetation base. So says the Malbim, he says, in this case, usually Shlomo HaMelech, when he would elevate himself, he was able to drag on a spiritual journey not only his neshama, but also his animalistic side of him and his vegetative side of him. The animalistic side of him is what? Is the instinct, is the emotions, right? And the vegetative side is what? Is the basic instinct of survival, eating, reproducing, digesting, right? Basic five senses, etc. So says the Malbim, Kamti ani liftoach ledodi, I decided that I need to fall back onto something and do teshuvah in order to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the Kamti. Teshuvah, says the Malbim, is standing on your 2 feet and deciding to make a change. When a person does teshuvah, he's standing. And for what purpose? Liftoach ledodi. To allow HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come in. To allow that connection to happen. And he says, Ve'adai natfumo. He says, my hands, my actions were dripping the mirror. Only had the control over the animalistic side of me, the instinct and the tendencies. But he does not address the levona. So says the Malbim, Shlomo HaMelech was not able to elevate on that trial his basic instincts on a spiritual journey, on teshuvah. Meaning he was still too dependent or too weak when it came to his basic desires and needs. So he tried from an instinct, from an emotional, from a trait level, right, to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without being able to drag with him his basic desires, instinctive desires. And he says the hands are the furthest point to the heart and to the brain, right? You have the legs and you have the hands. This is the furthest point. So he says, Shlomo HaMelech is saying, the teshuvah is in the level of my hands, is the level of the tipping of my fingers. I was not able to bring it to the heart. I was not able to bring it to the core essence of the body. It's the Malbim explains that it's like a superficial type of, according to Shlomo HaMelech, at his level, he was superficial. But that was the teshuvah he started doing. And he says, he says, every time I try to open even that instinct, even that animalistic side of me that I was able to control and do teshuvah with, it would disappear. Every time I held on to the knob, right, it would go away. Meaning there was a very unstable state in Shlomo HaMelech in his ability to do teshuvah. For sure not on a deep level, because we see that he was not in control of the instinct of intimacy, of the instinct of food, or the basic instinct of the individual. But even when he was trying to face HaKadosh Baruch Hu and open the door to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from his emotions, from his midot, from his mitorer, even that he was not able to control and hold on to. So we see that a teshuvah, even at the level of Shlomo HaMelech, is not you wake up, you say, you know what, that's it, I'm done, I'm connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it happens. There are challenges in doing teshuvah. Even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, Pitcho li petach kepitcho shel machat, open me the slightest door, yeah? But that's a window of opportunity that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is willing to create for an effort to be equal to a lot. But if we don't take that window of opportunity, and we see Shlomo HaMelech did not take that window of opportunity, at that point, the teshuvah is not so simple anymore. It will require much more effort than expected. How does that apply to us? The month of Elul, Ani ledodi vedodi, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Baal Shem Tov and the Chachamim tell us that during the month of Elul, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to us. He's in the fields. He wants to mingle with us. This is why during the month of Elul, before Rosh Hashanah, we are very focused on Teshuvah, on the Mehillah. We do Tahanunim, Selihot, right? Because it's that window of opportunity of Pitro li Pitro kepetach shel machat. It's that opportunity that comes once a year for the entire nation, where we don't have to do too much for our teshuvah to be accepted. It's amplified and empowered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's specific to that time. But that every individual has their own opportunity of Pitro li Petach, right? Open me a door that is wide like a needle. Everybody has that chance when HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides to. But here it seems that when this opportunity is given and you don't take it, well, you cannot expect this to be a status quo and available for every time you want. This is what the Malbim comes and teaches us. And he says, בכל עת שרצה להתפשט מחומריותו ולפתוח לדודו, עבר המור וחלף לו. Why? He says every time he tried to open the door, every time he tried to connect, there was a challenge in him. Because his Yetzer Hara, his instinct took over. As what did he do? Pasuk Vav. Patahti ani ledodi. I finally decided to open the door. The ani, I decided, you know what? Complete teshuvah, not complete teshuvah, stable or unstable. Patahti ani ledodi. I need to open the door. Vedodi, and my beloved, Hamak, Avar, he hid. He turned around and he's gone. He left. Nafshi yatz'a bedabero. I fainted when I heard him of what he said. Right? This is the Tochachot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, telling Shlomo HaMelech, I will rip from you the kingdom of David HaMelech. I will take away this kingdom from you. Bikashtihu, or I'll take away the Bet HaMikdash, I'll take away the Shekhinah. Bikashtihu, and I asked for him. I asked around. Velo metzatihu, I cannot find him. Kerativ, I called him up. Velo anani, and he does not answer me. This is what is called Hester Panim. This is called Hester Panim. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides not to listen. Hashem yishmor v'rachem aleinu v'alechem. Says the Gaon Mivilna, this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's behavior with Am Yisrael during the second temple, the second Bet HaMikdash. During the second Bet HaMikdash, we lost five interactions of Hashem with Am Yisrael. We didn't have the Aron Naberit. We did not have the Urim Vetumim that would, the Hoshen, that we would ask the HaKadosh Baruch Hu for answers, and then the stones would light up on the Kohen Gadol. We didn't have that. We didn't have Ruach HaKodesh. We didn't have Esh, the fire coming down. And the Shekhinah left and did not come back. So it's almost a body with actions without a neshama that is vibrant. Patahti ani ledodi. But, says the Gaon Mivilna, Am Yisrael were still ready to do a brit. Patahti ani ledodi. When I opened the door, it means I made a brit. I made a deal with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I am willing to stay close to you, even without all these privileges. I know I'm not worthy of them. But you know what? The connection is still good for me. I want the Bet HaMikdash even without those privileges, even without all those revelations. I need the connection. ודודי חמק עבר, והקדוש ברוך הוא said, okay, עבר, I will have the Bet HaMikdash, but without all these five revelations. Akadosh, when it's an interaction where you ask Hashem for something and He does not answer. Hester Panim. This was, the Gaon tells us, this was the interaction with Hashem during the second Bet HaMikdash, and this is emulated to the relations of Shlomo HaMelech had now with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know He's here, you know He's around, you know He's looking at you, but He's not interactive, not responsive. Yes.
What did Shlomo do that was so bad that it got to that point?
He addressed it. He went to sleep. He lost his ways with the woman. His heart was influenced by the woman. That was the previous shiurim that we discussed.
I just didn't know if there was more, if that was just it.
No, that's it. That's it. I mean, it's a lot, but yeah, that's it. And let's keep in mind, it's Shlomo HaMelech, yeah? So here the Gaon tells us that this is the brit, this is the connection, the new interaction with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Malbim, he says, Patahti, he says, when Shlomo HaMelech saw that he cannot find inner stability and strength to channel his desire to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly, because of this instability we just spoke about. He said, whatever can connect will connect. But what can we do? That's patahti ani ledodi. I am willing to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu with whatever I have. Vedodi, hamak, avar. But the neshama of the neshama, meaning the connection, the connector that you need in order to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hamak, avar, disappeared from him. Nafshi yatzea bedabero. He's like, I was almost about to die. I almost fainted when I was analyzing and realizing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me, which is the nevuah that told Shlomo HaMelech that Hashem will take away the kingdom. Here, Shlomo HaMelech tells us that when a person loses the connection, it's not only that he has signals. You know, when you have a phone and a Wi-Fi router, so the router sends a signal, the phone sends a signal, then it pairs, and then it connects. When Shlomo HaMelech lost the connection, it's not that there was no connection between the router and the signal and the phone. There was no router. No, there was no router. He lost the router. He says this is what happens when a person disconnects. It's not that there's no connection. It's that you lose that aura, you lose that peace, that spiritual element that actually allows you to get to that level. And you will need to rebuild it, and you will need to reconstruct it in order to be able to have that element, in order to be able to connect. That's what the Malbim explained when he said, "V'nafshi yatz'a b'daberu." He says, "Bikashtihu." How did I ask for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He said, with my teshuvah, velo metzatihu, it wasn't enough. Kerativ, I called him. He says, with tefillah, with begging, velo anani, and he did not respond to me. Here we see that Shlomo HaMelech is like a fish outside of the water, right? He's trying everything he can out of panic to reconnect. But the door is closed. The door is shut down. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not interested at that point. What's very interesting is to see that if we put together the two Malbims that we just spoke about, is that the more a person is attached to basic instinctive needs, his desires of food, his desires of intimacy, like he brings up in Pasuk He, and the more he destroys his router, the more he destroys his neshama la neshama. It's quite scary because apparently, or you live in the neshama and you give a purpose to the basic instinct, a spiritual purpose to the basic instinct, which is Shlomo HaMelech before he went to sleep, or you live in the basic instinct and the collateral damage happens in the neshama. And that's how you lose the connection. So if there cannot be a horizontal and vertical connection at the same time. It's or everything is vertical, or it's horizontal, or it's connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's connected to physicality. You can elevate the physicality, but you cannot have a dual connection. At least not on that level. Maybe on a very basic, mundane level, you can tap in here, tap in there, but that's not really connection. But once you really want to connect, then you need to determine what is essential and what is not. And Mi Gadol, who's greater than Shlomo HaMelech, to face this test and to face this challenge. And yet we see that he failed in it. And no tefillah and no teshuvah in a reactive way like that was able to recreate and reconstitute the neshama la neshama, that router that we're talking about. Good? We can do Pasuk Zayin. Metzauni HaShomerim. The Shomrim, the guardians, right? Metzauni, found me. Hasovevim Ba'ir, the ones that go around the city, yeah? The patrol guards that go around the city, they found me. Where did they find me? They found me while I was going and looking for my beloved. Hikuni petzauni. They struck me, they hit me, and they petzauni, and they bruised me. Nas'u et redidi me'alai. They stripped me Shomrei HaChomot, the protectors, the guardians of the walls. Here the Gaon Mivilna says something amazing. He says every person, when he comes to the world, he comes with two angels that protect him all the time, from the beginning of from the day he's born until the day he goes. He has two angels all the time with him. Those angels report the behavior of the person to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on a daily basis. We go to sleep, the neshama goes with the two angels, and the two angels are the witnesses that come in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, we saw him do this, and we saw him do that. We saw him pray, we saw him think, we saw him eat, we saw him. The purpose of these angels at the birth of the person is to protect the baby. We come to this world with zero protection. We think that as parents, we are the protectors of the kids. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says every individual with two angels, the baby will be protected no matter what, with or without the parents. We have apotropsim, we have trustees that are here to look after the baby, the parents. But the baby has his own bodyguards. So the purpose of these angels, says the Gaon Mivilna, are to protect. Right? If you think about it, the chances of a baby to get hurt are greater than the chances of the baby to survive. If it's not for those angels that protect the child when he's running, when he's moving, when he's doing Hashem Yishmor Makara, right? Every second we have to bless and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for protecting our children. They're under threat every second. Rahaman al-Islam. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends those angels. Says the Gaon Mivilna, those angels are born from the purity of the neshama. However, as the person grows and as the person starts making averot, twisting things, he starts contaminating those angels. He starts forcing those angels to see and witness things that they don't want. It's like bodyguards that you put to protect your children, and then the child tells the bodyguards, you cannot do anything, and you're going to watch me go against my father's will. And you know what? Tough luck. They have no choice. They have to be there. They have to face. But says the Gaon, every night those angels come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is what we saw. This is what he did. Now, we know the rule. The rule is that if somebody comes and say, oh, I saw this guy do that, we don't believe him. We need two witnesses. So there is no way in the world that at the end of the day, we can cop out or get away from what we're doing, because we have those two angels that are witnessing at all time. Our actions, our thoughts, our emotions, everything. And it's based on the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat of Kuf Yutet. And says the Gaon, Hasovevim Ba'ir. He says those are the angels that go around the city once we go out. Metzauni HaShomerim, the Neshama, went out of the house to look for her beloved. You're outside, those angels are outside with you. And they also wander with you. Hikuni. Hikuni, the real strike, says the Gaon Mivilna, is the disconnect of the Talmidei Chachamim from your life. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to strike someone, It deprives him from the source of wisdom, from the source of emet. This is the punch. Hikuni. Petzauni, they bruised me. He says, this is the Hurban Akdusha of Eretz Israel. He says, the bruise is when you are no longer able to connect to the Kedusha. And when there's an opportunity to be Kadosh, it's a bruise. It irritates you. You don't want to be in shul. You cannot listen to Torah. You don't want to be around. Leave me alone with it already. Khalas. A person that's reacting to Torah, a person that's reacting to Emet by saying, I'm not into it, leave me alone, I'm tired of this already, I've heard it all. Yeah? It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu bruising the person so that he cannot connect to the Kedusha. Petzauni. נשאו את רדידי מעליי שומרי החומות. He says this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu leaving the person vulnerable to the world. It's worse than the bruise. It's that now there's no connection to wisdom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away the Talmidei Chachamim. He takes away your connection to Torah. Then he makes you irritated from Kedusha, from things that can connect you to the Torah, to him. And then he puts you vulnerable to the rest of the world. And that is done how? Shomrei HaChomot, the Shomrei HaChomot, he said, these are the Malachim, Michael and Gabriel, that basically tell those angels that are with you, you no longer protect them. So the protection of the king are no longer here. They're just here to witness, but they're not here to protect. It's a free fall, Rahamana Litzelan. Shlomo HaMelech is saying, I messed up. I went to look for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. With that superficial teshuvah that are sitting on my fingers, like we spoke about, in the level of my hands. I went out, I tried, but you know what happened? Metzauni Shomerim. My bodyguards found me, right? Hasovevim Ba'ir, the one that go around in the city with me. Hikuni Petzauni. And because I contaminated them, they disconnected me from the Torah. They disconnected me from the Kedusha. Nas'u et redidim me'alai shomrei hachomot, and Malach Gabriel and Raphael told him no more protection. So Melech feels naked right now on a spiritual level and fully disconnected from any source of Kedusha and Chokhmah. This is Shlomo HaMelech, that this is the level of Chokhmah of Shlomo HaMelech, right? We're not talking about our level of Chokhmah now. We're talking about Shlomo HaMelech's level of Chokhmah. The Malbim says, Metzauni HaShomerim, he says, we spoke about it a few times, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to every individual survival instinct. We discussed it, right? Many times. And how we distort the survival instinct and turn it into a desire. He says, the Shomrim, Metzauni HaShomerim, he says, while I was trying to elevate myself and I was trying to build and pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and build my teshuvah, my survival instinct was so contaminated by the desires of women. They didn't leave me grow. They didn't leave me free spiritually. הכריחו את הנפש להישאר עם הגבייה ומידותיה ותאוותיה הגשמיות. They forced me. They forced the nefesh. They forced my intellect to stay dependent, to stay connected to my desires for women, my desires for food, my desires for pleasures. השיבוה למסגרה בכל פעם על ידי מכות ופצעים שהם חולי הנפש בחוביה. He says, you know what it means, ikuni petzaruni? I was hit, I was bruised. He says, this is fear, this is depression, this is sadness, loneliness, confusion. He says the body has a mechanism that knows how to trap the neshama from growing. It's instinctive. It's instinctive. The more you're dependent on desires, and the more desires will play an emotional trick on you to make sure you don't elevate yourself spiritually. And it uses sadness, fear, depression, confusion, anger to trap you. He says, this is ikuni petzauni. נשאו את רדידי מעליי, שומרי החומות, he says they took away the freedom of the intellect. He says another trick the body has, the nefesh has, is to put those, those things that we put on the horse, whatever it's called, by the
saddle, or blinders.
The blinders. He says the body has blinders, intellectual blinders, that when it feels that it's losing control over the body, over the essence of the person, because the person is trying to rise spiritually, is trying to rise in Kedusha, it starts narrow-minding you. You can no longer think in a broad way. You start now, being very, very, very calculated, very small, very narrow-minded. He says a person that's narrow-minded, says the Malbim, is a person that has his body, his desires controlling him. The more you are open-minded, and open-minded doesn't mean that you're open to do anything. Open-minded means that you are free to swim in the sea of knowledge and of wisdom as pleased. Says Shlomo HaMelech, even my ability to navigate in the seas of wisdom, I lost it. This is rationalism, says the Malbim. When a person starts blocking his abilities to see different facets, and instead rationalizes and say, well, this is it, and this is right, and there's no reason for me to think past that. I'm a good guy. I don't steal. I don't hurt. I'm a good guy. That's enough. Right? Hashem doesn't need more than that. Oh, I put tefillin. Okay? Hashem loves me. I put tefillin. Okay? Or I deserve. All these limitations intellectually are the byproduct of our own desires and our own prison that we created by our need, but our need to have desires in our lives. This is Pasuk Zayin. Any questions?
Yes, Rav, I understand how Shlomo got to this place, but as an analogy to us on our level, what would it take, lo aleinu, for these things to happen?
Well, it's not. It's not. We cannot see this as a macro scenario where you have this situation and then you have that situation. I think that every situation we're in, every opportunity we have, it can shift, right? It goes like it can go from high to low all the time. Obviously, what Shlomo HaMelech is addressing to us here is his own experience. Yeah. But we don't know if that experience happened 1,000 times during a period of time. And he's just bringing out that experience so that we are aware of it. Or it was a very long period feeling this way. Yeah. The way it's expressed is that it was a long period. But what we learn from it is that we need to introspect ourselves. First of all, we need to know, am I in a prison or not? Am I narrow-minded or not? Let's flip the coin. Shlomo HaMelech went from super high to super low. If we want to evaluate ourselves, let's start from low to high. Am I dependent on my desires or not? If I am, what type of prison did I build around myself? If I have a prison, how does that impact my mind? Am I narrow-minded? Okay. How do I react to opportunities to grow in Torah? Do I undermine it or do I embrace it? Am I for no reason sad? Am I for no reason fearful? Am I for no reason angry? Am I for no reason depressed? Whatever it is, right? Is that something that is real, or it's just an emotion that keeps me in check to be little and to be boxed in to an ecosystem that I created for myself because of my desires? Do I have access to Talmidei Chachamim? I don't have access to them. How do I react to opportunities of Kedusha? Again, we see the crash. But when we build ourselves, we have to go from low to high. And slowly, check the box. Okay, I'm good this, I'm good there, I'm good that. And by the way, I might be good in certain areas and I might be weak in others. But here we have a very dramatic and very scary definition of Hester Panim, of Hashem turning his back on a person. Now, as I said, this is Shlomo HaMelech, right? We're not Shlomo HaMelech. But in our own way, in our own lives, we can start having point of references, right? Am I aware that when I walk and I say something or I think of something, there are two people watching me? Do I have akarat atov to those angels that protected me when I crossed the street or when I fell or when I was on a bicycle, when I didn't know, when I didn't pay attention to all the risks around me when I was a little baby? Do we have akarat atov to the angels that are next to us, protecting us? Now, the angels, I don't owe nothing because they're just shlichim from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But I have to be respectful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for those angels that are around me. It's no longer about me. It's about me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the message Shlomo HaMelech is sending. This is the pain. I was alone. I went to sleep on my own. It was about me. And when I wake up and I want to rekindle, I want to rebuild, I want to refresh my awareness and the reality that it's not about me, it's about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ani ledodi vedodi li. At that point, Shlomo Amelech says, I realized I created a golden prison around myself, and I'm trapped within myself. Our avodah is to understand where we are trapped. If somebody says I'm not trapped, he's a liar. He's lying to himself. We're all trapped in a way. Now, if the prison is thick, I don't know, 10 feet wide, with cement, or 3 feet, to each their own. We're all trapped. The question is, how do we break that prison slowly? How do we create the breach and react to receptors, to points of references? When a person calls you for a shiur, now I'm not talking if you have a commitment and you really cannot go, but if you're not doing anything, okay, it seems interesting. Do you or for mincha? Come, can you want to do mincha? Do you want to do? I'm tired. Leave me alone. Oh no! Hakadosh Baruch Hu is inviting me to pray. Vaday, I'm coming. It doesn't matter with who I do mincha, right? What's my instinctive reaction? Will I pray mincha? Yes, I will pray mincha for sure. With minyan, yes. The question is, how do I react when an opportunity of kedusha comes? You understand?
And you use that as the barometer.
That's right. That's right. And that's how you feel where you really are in your life. And where is that Kadosh Baruch Hu in your life? And let's not forget, all of this is why? Because of our need to be dependent on desires.
Spectacular.
Baruch Hashem. We did Pasuk He, Vav, and Zayin today. Baruch Hashem.
Andy, I didn't see you there. Wow.
The time.
Andy in a suit is amazing.